Hi guys, welcome back to Z's Corner. This is Zal. In yesterday's video that I did around G4 ships, uncommon versus rares, someone pointed out to me that I mispronounced a Romulan G4 rare ship. In the video, I said Pilum, but it was pointed out to me that really the name is the same as the Roman weapon of the same name, which would be the Pilum in English or the Pilum in Latin if you want to get fancy. So, thank you, Stacy, for correcting me on my mispronunciation there. And in terms of what else is new, you might have noticed that I got a haircut. I don't like it when my hair kind of sticks out to the side. It makes me look like I kind of have an afro. So, my wife gave me a haircut today. So big shout out to my wife. Thanks, honey. Now, on to the topic of today's video. I noticed Harrison was on sale. John Harrison was on sale around Christmas. So quite a few people who didn't have them yet just got them recently. And I kind of wanted to do a quick video in terms of how to use them, which ships and which officers are good with Harrison. This is just a quick overview on the officer. For his officer ability, note that it's only for round 1. He has something called Shield Ignore, and this is something that is very, very useful in PvP. Even at tier 1, he's got 60% Shield Ignore, and that kind of goes up by 10% each tier until you max him, where he's at 100% Shield Ignore. His captain ability is increased damage versus explorers. He's part of section 31, so he has synergy with Marcus, Yuki, and my namesake, Tao. And a quick side note, since we're talking about pronunciations anyway, it's not really pronounced Dao. It's a Chinese name, and I'm Chinese American. The actual Chinese pronunciation is Zhou. A lot of people really can't pronounce that, so I kind of just go with the anglicized pronunciation of my name. I've noticed that a lot of people don't have a really good understanding of how Harrison works and his mechanics, or they might have a misunderstanding of how he works. Basically, his officer ability does not really affect base mitigation. It only affects shield mitigation. So what that means is that the percent of damage that should have gone to the shields are going to the hull instead in round 1. In this case, it's actually very similar to TOS O'Hara, except that his percentage is very, very high and only lasts for 1 round, whereas TOS O'Hara works every single round as long as the ship has morale. So let's take a look at an example of how Harrison works in PvP. And a big shout out to Jet, who's a real big friend of mine, for helping me do this and do the testing with his ships. So I pulled out the battle log directly, and this is kind of round 1, and you see my Pilum is hitting his Kelvin. Oh, not my Pilum. Sorry, not my Pilum. It's my Pilum, or my Pilum, is hitting his Kelvin. And here's the kind of math in terms of how the hull damage is being dealt. Basically, the equation is the weapon damage times parentheses 1 minus basic mitigation as a percentage minus shield mitigation as a percentage multiplied by 0.2. Why is it multiplied by 0.2? It's because my Harrison is tier 3 and has 80% shield ignore. So really, the hull damage is 20,330 times parentheses 1 minus 0.5829, which is Jet's basic mitigation percentage, and then minus 0.3337 times 0.2, 0.337 being his shield mitigation percentage, and 0.2, as I said before, is the amount of damage that goes to his shields. So then hull damage is going to be 217,336. Now, if you kind of did the math at home, just note that because of the rounding, your number is not going to be exactly like 217,336. It'll be really close. If you kind of do everything in Excel and do all the calculations there, then you'll get the exact number of 217,336. So this is a look at round 2. This is where Harrison isn't proccing anymore. So hull damage has actually become much lower, despite the fact that I'm critical hitting at a much higher rate. So hull damage. So the hull damage equation here is now reverted back to weapon damage multiplied by parentheses 1 minus basic mitigation percentage minus shield mitigation percentage. In this case, if you do the math, it's 1.812 million, so 1,812,193 times parentheses 1 minus 0.829, which is the percent of basic mitigation, minus 0.0037, which is his shield mitigation percentage. And this equals 151,170. So let's switch to the game and look at a few examples of officers that might be really good with Harrison. And we'll also look at some of the ships as well. So since Harrison only works for one round, when you're selecting officers to pair with them, you really want to maximize the amount of damage that you're doing to your opponent's ships for that round. So examples would be like, H.G. Worf, who does increase chances to proc critical hit. Harry Mudd, as you can see in the screen right here, because his officer ability is, double shots for the first round. And also other types of officers would be your basic, attack, statistic enhancement officers that we'll kind of go over in a bit. So, in this case, the example that I have up, I used H.G. Worf as captain, Harry, or Fat Mudd, as I like to call him, for a chance to proc, and then Harrison. And then Jet was trying to counter me with TOS O'Hara to counter my H.G. Worf, TOS Kirk, and then H.G. Worf, he was trying to do his own critical hits against me. It didn't really work out for him. This is kind of the example that I was showing in the PowerPoint. You can see that my Fat Mudd actually did not proc, sadly. He never seems to proc when I really need him to proc. But here you see that I'm doing significant damage to him. This fight went on for a long time, for 11 rounds, but he really just couldn't get through all my shields and all my hull before I kind of blew him up. So here's an example that I ran with Jet, and this time I used Pike instead of Fat Mudd, and I did that because Pike has an ability that enhances other officers' ability. If you look at it right here, it says that 2 times 20% of the effectiveness of all bridge officers' ability that activate in combat. So what this really means for Harrison in this case is that I'm going from 80% to well above 80%. So I have 100% shield ignore in round 1, and you can see this right here in the battle log. You see how he has zero, you see he has no shield health damage, and all that damage that should have gone into shield health is now going directly into hull health for the first round. And you can see, I don't get through his shields in round 1, so in round 2, you kind of see when Harrison isn't working anymore, then all that shield health is or all that shield mitigation is back. So here's another good example of officers to pair with Harrison, and I want you guys to focus on Requiem's crew right now. He has Khan captain, so Khan's part of the trio of attack stat boosters that we had talked about back in my first video, being Khan, Marcus, and Charvonic. So what Khan captain here, why he's a really good officer to pair with Harrison is because he boosts the ship's accuracy, and that counters the dodge that is kind of native to my interceptor here as well. So what this translates to is that he's actually lowering my basic mitigation chances. And when basic mitigation is lowered, then that means that he deals more damage to the hull and to the shield. But with Harrison in place for round 1, that means all that shield mitigation is basically gone. It's going directly to the hull. In addition, Khan Distance is this captain procs 80% chance for hull breach, and when you have hull breach, you actually receive additional critical hit damage, and he's got H.G. Worf right here to capitalize on that as well. So if we look at the log here, I did not last very long. You can see that he does very significant critical hits in the first couple of hits, over 4 million damage. I only mitigate 751,000, so I've got like 18%. If you do the math there, it's about 18% shield basic mitigation. And because he's got Harrison on, I do almost no shield health mitigation. So 3 million damage from one shot to the hull. I mean, I'm not going to last very long in cases like this. So really, what does that mean? That means that as you're thinking about how to crew with Harrison, one of the consideration factors is if you want to have more of a generic, general, all-purpose type crew where Harrison's good against all ship types, or if you want to be very targeted against your opponent's ship type. If you want to be a target against your opponent's ship type, then you should probably use either Marcus, Charvonic, or Khan, depending on your opponent's ship class. So let's look at a few different setups that could help against different opponent ship classes. So the first one we'll look at is kind of an anti-explorer setup. So let's put Marcus in by group to find Harrison really quick. There's Harrison. I would use Harrison Captain because remember his captain ability, if I can pull it up, I can't pull it up. His captain ability is when fighting explorers, his weapon damage is increased by 20%. You get the extra synergy from Marcus of 20%, so it's going to be about 40%. And we're also going to have, H.G. Worf. Where's H.G. Worf? Oh, there he is. So this would be a setup that would be really good against explorers. Let's look at a setup that could work against enemy battleships. So I put Charvonic as captain in this case because Charvonic could proc burning when she's captain, and burning has a small percentage impact directly on hull health when it packs. So that's going to help out there. So you got Charvonic, H.G. Worf, and Harrison. In terms of some of the other officer combos that might work with Harrison, I put the one that you guys saw in one of my battle logs. I've got Pike Captain. That basically makes Harrison 100% shield ignore with H.G. Worf. This is more of a generic type of Harrison crew, so it's good against all ship types. And the other one that I had was around Fat Mud. So let's find Fat Mud real quick. Oh, I don't want to. Oh, there he is. So Fat Mud, he can proc double shots in round 1. So for a ship that has a lot of shots, or a big gun in round 1, this is actually a really good choice as well. So now let's go over real quick which ships Harrison would be good on. Basically anything that either has a really big gun in round 1 or has a lot of shots in round 1, he would work well on, especially in conjunction with someone like Fat Mud. G3 ships, we've got the Saladin, which has a really big gun in round 1, and it's the primary reason why it excels and does really well in PvP and PvE. The Sarcophagus, which has 10 shots by default in round 1, and a really huge damage modification bonus if it's on a node. So with Fat Mud on there, potentially you could get 20 shots off, and there's not too many ships that can take 20 shots from our Sarco with all the damage bonus that it has when it's on a node during an active TC. So, okay, sorry, forgot to mention that it has to be during an active TC and on a node to get that damage bonus from it. And third but not least, in terms of the G3, is the Stella. The Stella actually has 12 shots in round 1, so it's a really good ship to use as well, although not for PvP, mostly for PvE. When you're grinding Eclipse hostiles and you're going against ones that are maybe not too big, you can throw Harrison on. And then there's 2 G4 ships that work really well with Harrison as well. One is the Coronar, which you've got shown up here. She fires 4 rounds, 4 times in round 1 actually, and 2 of those shots are really big shots, and that's why Harrison would work well on the Coronar. And last but not least would be the Pilum or the Pilum, because it fires by default 7 shots in round 1. So that's kind of it for today's video. Thank you guys for tuning in, and if you're not a subscriber already, please hit the subscribe button. Please be on the watch out for some more content. I'm still kind of toying with what I want to do with the next video. I don't know if I'm going to do a Stella video or I'm going to do more of the G4 ships. But if you have any other thoughts, feel free to message me on Discord or in-game, or just leave a comment down below. Thank you so much. This is Sal signing out. Bye-bye.